Good morning, Year 8, and welcome to this second lesson of your week returning from the Easter holidays. Obviously, we started a new unit on non-fiction reading skills, and this is the second text. First was Ada Blackjack. And if you haven't done that yet, go back and have a go. This one is about Edward Whymper and his book Scrambles Amongst the Alps in the years 1860 to 1869, which you should have the text of. And it's all about reading, understanding, and inferring the writer's attitudes. Okay, so I'd like you to note down the title, learning objective, date, and then I'd like you to pause here and read the text. There is a PDF attached to the Show My Homework. Okay, so if you've read the text, you should broadly understand what had happened. So we've got 6 climbers and Edward, the first men to climb the Matterhorn, which is one of the highest mountains in Europe. He describes what happens on the way down. So I'd like you to picture this. Okay, so there are 7 men. They're all descending the mountain. Okay, so this one is nearest the beginning of the descent. This one's at the top. Got the names up here. I'd like you to have a go. You can draw the diagram if you like, or maybe you could just number them on the top. So if you can work out the order the men were climbing in and who fell first. Okay, so would you like to know? From what I can make out from this text, it was Haddo who was beginning or at the top of this group. Okay, and we've got our narrator right down here and young Peter Taugwalder. So it looks like young Peter and old Peter are either side of Whymper, and then it's Haddo who loses his footing, bumps into Croz, and then they take out Hudson and Lord Francis Douglas. So you've got 4 men who fall. They're all attached to each other by a rope. Okay, all tied together for safety. But unfortunately, what that means is when one falls, so do the next. And it only stops with old Peter because he and Whymper cling together and they hold firm, but the rope breaks, apparently, although perhaps he cut it. Who knows? So, a difficult situation. What can we infer about the writer's attitudes? I'm actually going to focus in this first lesson on the first half of this text. And what we can surmise, attitudes are a really important part of non-fiction reading skills. And what we mean is, what are they feeling on the inside? What are they thinking on the inside? So what's going on and how can we tell from the words that they choose? Now, Whymper, of course, survived this, but 4 of his fellow mountaineers did not. And as you've seen, mountaineering is a kind of like really popular extreme sport for wealthy men in this period of the 1860s. So it's not surprising, but you don't want to make it look like you caused the accident or that you're responsible for their death, and you want to sound sufficiently sad as well. So let's have a look. Now, when you're reading through, you want to particularly look out for, and this is a great tip, emotive words, because these betray what the writer is feeling. So in this first paragraph, I noticed that although these aren't necessarily emotive, the words he chooses like slipped, fell, flying, and drag all suggest it was an accident. Particularly Hudson was dragged from his steps and Lord F. Douglas immediately after him. So we know that Whymper basically wants it to seem like the men were powerless to escape their fate. They couldn't have done more to prevent it. So that's my first inference. If you've got your text with you, you could highlight and make notes with me, and it'll help you with the next activity. The next thing I noticed is that he wants to show how quickly he acted. He says, all this was the work of a moment. And that's actually the shortest sentence in this whole passage. It's just a few words. And he's trying to show that he was surprised at the speed of the accident, but also that he responded. Immediately we heard Cros's exclamation, Old Peter and I planted ourselves as firmly as the rocks would permit. So as soon as he hears Croz's cry, he acts by planting himself, means like putting his feet down firmly and holding on. So a bit of an old-fashioned word there. So I'm going to say his attitude is that he wants to show he acted quickly to help the men, to save them if he could. But what goes wrong? Well, he says, we held, but the rope broke. No, that's helpful, isn't it? So it was the rope's fault. It wasn't his fault, it was the rope's fault. So that's actually partly Whymper's attitude, is that that the accident could not have been prevented. Furthermore, he's assiduous in the emotive words he uses to describe the four men who died. He calls them unfortunate companions and describes how they're spreading out their hands, endeavouring to save themselves. A really emotive image there of these men sliding backwards, grasping with their little mittened hands, trying to hold on to something, but only heading in one direction, which is downwards. And it would probably make him feel pretty helpless, being unable to save him as well. So words like unfortunate suggest his pity. A companion is a friend, and that's important as well. He uses the word comrade down here, which also suggests a friend and an equal in a joint cause, which in this case is the expedition. So the same cause, meaning like something they're fighting for. Okay, so they're sliding downward on their backs. His final comment is that they passed out of sight uninjured. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with them, but they fall precipice to precipice 4,000 feet. So although they didn't look battered when they left, what he's suggesting is that they would have been horribly injured and then died. And finally, I noticed that although he's been very sympathetic so far, let me move this down, and he's very shocked by what has happened, some of his comments about the other, this isn't great, is it? That's a bit better. About the other men are quite telling as well. He seems really unimpressed by their behaviour. He says the two men, paralysed by terror, cried like infants, cried like a baby. The young man did nothing but scream or sob. We are lost, we are lost. And of course he can't move because he's between the older and younger tug holder. Old Peter becomes alive to the danger and swells the cry, we are lost, we are lost. And then he says, well, the father's fear was natural. He trembled for his son, but the young man's fear was cowardly. He thought of self alone. So his attitude here, and this is where we are inferring, because he never says explicitly, I'm judging you, but you can infer that he thinks they should have been braver, especially the younger man, who he feels is incredibly selfish. So when we're looking for attitudes, we're always looking for what's going on in their hearts, in their minds. Now I'd like you to have a go at filling out this. You've got 4 quotations. On the left-hand side is a space for you to put a point, and that means something like what you've got here, but in a nice full sentence, as if this was going to turn into a paragraph with a point, an example, and an analysis. So the point could be given something like, Whymper feels, or it could be that he thinks. You're going to want to read the quote first before you infer what he feels, but hopefully our notes will help. And then have a go explaining how you know that. What are the words that indicate what he's feeling? Okay, have a go, and then I will go through the answers in the next video.